Imagine a world transformed. The United States and China, longtime rivals, announce a military alliance. This single act would send shockwaves across the globe. Consider this. Their combined military spending exceeds $2 trillion annually. Such a partnership would dwarf any existing coalition by a significant margin. The geopolitical chessboard as we know it would be instantly overturned. Alliances forged over decades might crumble overnight. New power dynamics would emerge with breathtaking speed. This essay explores this hypothetical scenario. It delves into the potential conditions that could foster such an alliance. We will examine the historical context of their complex relationship. The narrative will analyze the immediate reactions from key global players. Think of NATO, Russia, India, and Japan. Their responses would be critical in shaping the new global landscape. The potential military and economic consequences are vast. These require careful consideration and thoughtful analysis. The implications for international institutions are profound. It forces us to confront the fragility of the current world order. The relationship between the United States and China has been a tumultuous one. It has oscillated between cooperation and confrontation for decades. During the Cold War, they found themselves on opposing sides. China aligned with the Soviet bloc initially. The United States championed the Western democratic world. Ideological differences created a deep chasm between the two nations. Mistrust and suspicion characterized much of this early period. President Nixon's visit to China in 1972 marked a stunning geopolitical shift. This diplomatic opening was a masterstroke of realpolitik. It aimed to counterbalance Soviet influence. It also acknowledged the People's Republic of China as a major global player. This move demonstrated that even deeply entrenched rivalries could be set aside. National interests could drive seemingly impossible partnerships. This period laid the groundwork for future engagement. Following this opening, economic ties began to blossom. China embarked on market reforms. The United States saw an opportunity for trade and investment. Over the subsequent decades, their economies became deeply intertwined. China became the world's factory. The United States became a major consumer of Chinese goods. This economic interdependence created a complex dynamic. What could possibly compel these two giants to set aside deep-seated distrust? A truly existential threat, common to both, might be the only catalyst. Consider the escalating crisis of climate change. Imagine catastrophic weather events devastating both nations simultaneously. Rising sea levels threatening major coastal cities. Food and water security becoming critical concerns for billions. Such a shared calamity could force unprecedented cooperation for mutual survival. Another potential catalyst could be the uncontrolled rise of artificial general intelligence. If AGI emerged from an unexpected source, perhaps a rogue state or non-state actor, if it posed an immediate threat to global stability or human control, the United States and China, as leading AI developers, might find common cause. They might need to pool their resources and expertise. This would be to contain or manage such a powerful, unpredictable force. A devastating global pandemic, far worse than any previously experienced, could also be a factor. If a pathogen emerged that threatened to collapse societies worldwide. If existing international health organizations proved incapable of mounting an effective response. The United States and China might be forced to collaborate extensively. The announcement of a United States-China military alliance would trigger immediate and profound global reactions. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, would face an existential crisis. For decades, NATO's implicit and sometimes explicit focus included managing the rise of China. An alliance between its leading member and its systemic rival would be bewildering. European allies would question the United States' commitment to transatlantic security. Some might seek greater strategic autonomy, while others might try to accommodate the new superpower duo. NATO could fragment. Russia would find itself in an increasingly isolated and precarious position. Moscow has cultivated closer ties with Beijing. This was partly to counterbalance United States influence. A United States-China pact would upend this strategy completely. Russia would be wary of this new behemoth on its eastern and western peripheries. It might seek to strengthen its own military capabilities. It could also attempt to form new alliances with other nations unnerved by the United States-China axis. Its global standing would diminish significantly. India, a regional power with its own complex relationship with China, would undertake a serious security reevaluation. Border disputes and strategic competition with China are major concerns for New Delhi. A United States-China alliance could be perceived as a significant threat. India might accelerate its military modernization. Section 5, Military Impact, Joint Forces and Shifting Tides. A United States-China military alliance would reshape global military landscapes. Joint military exercises would become the norm. Imagine US and Chinese naval fleets operating together in the Pacific. This level of interoperability would take years to achieve. The strategic signal would be immediate and powerful. It would project unparalleled military might globally. The implications for the South China Sea would be dramatic. This region is a major flashpoint. China claims vast swaths, while the US conducts freedom of navigation operations. An alliance could lead to a negotiated settlement favoring Chinese interests. Alternatively, it could establish joint patrols for stability. Smaller claimant nations in Southeast Asia would watch anxiously. Their leverage would be significantly reduced. A US-China alliance could trigger a new global arms race or lead to unprecedented arms control. Nations outside the alliance might bolster their defenses. They might seek nuclear capabilities or advanced weaponry. Conversely, Washington and Beijing could enforce stricter non-proliferation regimes. They might lead efforts to limit destabilizing weapons. The direction would depend on their shared objectives. The balance of military power would shift decisively in their favor. Section 6. Economic Consequences, Trade, Technology and Treasure. The economic consequences of a US-China military alliance would be far-reaching. Global trade patterns would undoubtedly shift. The existing trade frictions and tariffs could be resolved. A new era of managed trade between the two economic giants might emerge. They could establish a massive free trade zone. This would create immense opportunities for businesses within the bloc. However, it might also erect new barriers for countries outside this economic sphere. Technological partnerships could flourish, particularly in critical sectors. Imagine joint ventures in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology. This collaboration could accelerate innovation at an unprecedented rate. However, it would also raise concerns about market dominance and data privacy. Other nations might struggle to compete with this combined technological prowess. The digital divide between the Allied powers and the rest of the world could widen significantly. This could lead to new forms of dependency. Investment flows and infrastructure development would likely be coordinated. China's Belt and Road Initiative could merge or align with US-led development projects. This could result in massive investments in infrastructure across developing countries. Such projects could stimulate global economic growth. However, they might also come with strings attached. Section 7. A New Geopolitical Order, Reforming Global Institutions. A military alliance between the United States and China would inevitably lead to calls for reforming global institutions. The United Nations Security Council, for instance, would face immense pressure. Its current structure reflects the post-World War II power balance. With the US and China aligned, their combined influence could dominate decision-making. This might lead to greater efficiency on some issues. However, it could also marginalize other permanent members and the broader UN General Assembly. International financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank would also undergo significant shifts. Their leadership and voting structures might be renegotiated. This would better reflect the new bipolar economic reality. The US and China could jointly steer global economic policies. They might direct development aid and lending practices according to their shared strategic interests. This could reshape global development priorities and economic governance for decades to come. The alliance could also pioneer new forms of international cooperation on global commons. Issues like space governance, deep-sea resource management, and Arctic regulation could be tackled. These would be addressed through joint US-China initiatives. Their combined technological and financial resources could lead to breakthroughs. However, this would also mean their priorities would largely dictate the terms of such governance. Section 8. Conclusion: Stability, Domination, or a Precarious Future. A US-China military alliance is improbable due to deep mistrust and competing interests. Yet history shows geopolitical landscapes are not static. Unexpected alliances have formed when circumstances shifted. The Nixon-Mao rapprochement is a reminder. Such an alliance could bring global stability or new domination. The outcome remains an open question.